Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we got something very special. We are going to build a red oak toy box slash blanket chest. This toy box is going to be for my brand new grandchild. That's right, I'm 43 years old and I have a grandchild now. Little Micah was born just before Thanksgiving and he is the light of our world. So I'm going to build him a red oak toy box that will last forever. And as always, the first thing we do in the shop is to break down all of the oak boards to the final length. All the sides are made with rail and style panel construction. So the front side will have 2 legs, 2 aprons, middle divider, and 2 panels. The sides will only have 2 legs, a rail, and a panel. There will be no divider. And as always, there will be plans available for this build on my website at the release of this video. Maybe, if they get them done in time. A lot of stuff going on, it's Christmas. And now we're going to take the boards over to the table saw and rip everything to final width. All the rails and stiles and legs are going to be 2.5 inches except for the legs on the side. The side legs are going to be 1 3/4 inches because they're going to be butted up against the front leg. So the front legs are going to be 3/4 inch plus the 1 3/4 inches for the legs from the sides, which will total 2.5. And next, I'm going to take all the parts and mark out for some, wait for it, dominoes. That's right, I'm using the domino joiner for all of the joinery for this project. I bought a domino for myself for Christmas. I needed it early to do this project. All Paul's happy. And before you flood my comments with, oh, you can do the joinery easier with something else, it's cheaper.
We do not care.
This is what I want. I bought it with my YouTube money, and you can make this box with any kind of joinery you want. You can do pocket holes, you can do dowels, you can do butt joints, you can do just glue it together. Whatever, it's your call. This is what I choose to use. And here is the actual first domino joint I have milled out with a domino joiner. And the settings here are all kinds of wrong. Yeah, and I also forgot to plane it before I did that because I was so excited to actually start with the domino joiner. Lessons learned, and we're going to move on. And so that's going to lead me to the first pro tip of the day. Clean all your material before you do any kind of joinery so all of those pieces are the exact same width. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but you know, whatever. And now we're going to go back over to the table saw and we're going to mill out some 1/2 inch oak plywood for these center panels. This plywood is actually custom ordered from Home Depot. They send it to you in a little box and you actually use the box for other cool stuff like applying finish to other stuff or keeping glue off of your table. And you notice on the table saw, the riving knife has been removed because I forgot to put it back in after I did some dados at a previous project. And when I was cutting the second set of panels, I had a little kickback incident and that thing flew back and hit me right in the belly button. Luckily, I got a lot of insulation and padding, so there wasn't a lot of damage done, but it still hurt. We're moving on to the router table. I'm going to go ahead and mill out some rabbets with a tongue and groove bit for the center panels. I'm going to do this first and then we're going to test it up against the piece that I made earlier. And it fits like a glove. So now we can go ahead and mill out the rest of the rabbets for all 6 panels. And now we're going to switch out the bit for the groove bit. This is a center divider and then the groove is going to go on both sides. The rest of the parts will have just one groove. Now the legs will also have a stop groove, which you'll see in just a second. And if anybody has a router table with a T-track on the fence, I highly recommend these Jessom stock guides. They keep the piece tight to the table and tight to the fence, which makes the cut a lot more safe and a lot more accurate. And as I mentioned before, we are going to do a stop groove in the legs. The stop groove is going to connect the 2 dominoes together. That way you will not see the groove at the top or the bottom of the legs. And next, I'm going to lop off the corners of each inside leg. This is going to add a little bit of a design element. And now we are ready to start assembling the box. The first step is to install the middle divider into the pre-drilled domino holes with some glue. Then we're going to slide the panels into each side. Then we're going to add the domino and the glue to each leg. And then install the legs. Once the legs are clamped together, that center divider will automatically center itself. And that's because the domino mortises and the top and bottom rail are milled in the loose setting, so it has some play side to side. And second pro tip of the day, when you do large glue ups like this, make sure you leave that glue up to sit and cure overnight, because I've had a lot of projects fail because I didn't let the glue cure long enough. And the side panels are constructed the same way. We're going to put some glue on the sides and on the dominoes, and then we're going to clamp it together and let it sit overnight. And one thing to note here is that the panel will be floating inside of the frame, so there is no glue in any of the grooves. And next, we're going to mill out some holes for the handles for the sides. This was a special request from my wife, so it would be easier to carry the box around. The first thing I do is mark out my lines, and then we're going to drill out each hole with a Forstner bit. And once the Forstner bit holes are done, we're going to go take the jigsaw and connect the dots. And I can't stand the jigsaw. The jigsaw sucks. And please do not buy this jigsaw. This jigsaw is probably the worst jigsaw on the market. It is incredibly underpowered, and it's just overall horrible. And because of the piss poor quality of that jigsaw, I had to do a terrible amount of hand sanding to get this to look somewhat decent. After you hand sand until your hands are completely raw and bleeding, I'm going to add a round over to each side of the handle. And then more hand sanding. What a joy. Ugh. And that is the best I can do, so I will just have to live with it. And now on to more sanding. We are going to sand all 4 sides to 220 grit, making sure we get rid of all the pencil marks and make sure all those joints are nice and flush. And since this is a project for a baby, we are going to make sure that there is absolutely no sharp corners on any part of this piece. So I'm going to take this Milwaukee detail sander and I'm going to break the edges of all the inside corners. And on to some more domino work. We're going to put some dominoes in each side of the side panels and then the inside corners of the edges of the front panel. Then we're going to glue it all together and actually make it a box. And next we're going to drop some glue into each domino mortise and then run a bead of glue down the side and then smush it back down with your finger. And then we're going to throw in some clamps and let it sit overnight.
24 hours later.
And once the box has sit overnight, we are going to go ahead and do some flush trim work on the sides to make everything even. Also going to add a nice 3/4 inch round over to each edge of the box. I sand everything smooth to 220 grit, getting rid of all the dried up glue and trying to get that gap a little bit more presentable. So square. So square.
Nailed it.
All right, so now we're going to be moving on to the top. Top is going to be laminated with 4 or 5 different widths of red oak boards. And the key here is to cut all your pieces a couple of inches longer because we are going to trim them up later. Then I take all the boards over to the joiner to get one flat edge so that the glue up seams will be seamless. And then all the boards are run through the planer so they are the exact same thickness. So I have laid all the boards out in the orientation I want, and now I'm going to mark some lines for some domino joints. And this is about the time that I figured out that all my domino joiner settings were wrong, so I made the adjustments. And now they are going on super smooth and super centered. And one thing to keep in mind here, the dominoes on the outside boards are in the tight settings, and all the dominoes in the middle boards are in the wide settings. Dude, are you really beating that together with a mallet directly onto the board? Wow, you are so special. The other thing is that you learn from your mistakes. Now you're using a piece of the other board to smash those together and not damaging the actual boards. That's going to show up after you finish, and then it's going to look weird. So good job, bud. And so for the good thing here is that that damaged board is going to be on the bottom side, so you're not really going to see it that much. So I'm going to take all the boards and throw them in some clamps, and we're going to let it sit, guess what? Overnight.
24 hours later.
After I take them off the clamps, I'm going to check and see how flat the boards are. And this really shocked the crap out of me. It's like dead flat. Holy crap. Score. And on to more sanding. I sanded the absolute crap out of this top. Started with 80 the grits to get all the glue off, and then I worked my way up through the grits from 120, 150, and all the way up to 220. And I sanded this top for at least 2 hours. And after the marathon sanding session has been completed, we are going to trim the top to final length. We are going to use the mighty Milwaukee track saw. This thing is absolutely incredible. It is the best track saw on the market besides the Festool. Going to use the Milwaukee track saw, I would highly suggest getting the shorter track that's 31 inches. A longer track will work, but sometimes it has a tendency to tip without track saw clamps. Onto the table saw, we are going to trim the top to final width with the table saw using a glue line rip blade. And now on to treating the edges of the top. I'm going to add a 3/4 inch round over to the top and bottom of the lid. This is going to be so that all the sharp edges go away and you don't hurt yourself, because it's for babies. And now after that top is completely sanded, we are going to completely switch gears and install the torsion hinges. These hinges are made by Rockler, and they will hold up to 60 pounds. And I'm going to place each hinge flush with the top rails, and then we're going to pre-drill some holes. Next, I'm going to flip the box over and center it on the top and then mark the holes for the hinges. I'm going to take a small drill bit and we're going to pre-drill the holes. I'm not going to go in too deep here. I'm only going in maybe 1/4 inch. And to prevent the wood from splitting, I'm going to add some paste wax to each screw using this little magnet thing. I thought this was pretty ingenious. And then we're going to use a small electronic screwdriver to fasten all of the screws. And this screwdriver is very low powered, so this will not strip that screw at all.
It was perfect. Perfect.
And now we're going to move along into installing the bottom cleats that will hold the bottom shelf. The bottom cleats are made out of offcuts from the top that we trimmed out earlier. And I'm using the mag switch feathering board to keep that piece tight to the fence so it's nice and even. I'm also using the same feathering board to keep an equal distance from the fence. This is probably a bad idea because that feathering board does flex a little bit, but it did work out. And next I take the cleats over to the miter saw and cut them to final length. The length of each cleat is going to be the same length as the inside corners of the panels. The short cleats that are attached to the side panels are rather short, so I made a mark on my miter saw fence that is the exact distance from the blade that I need. This worked out pretty well. To secure the cleats to the sides, I'm going to use glue and pin nails to keep it in place. Then I'm going to drill out some countersink holes and then secure the piece permanently with some pocket hole hardwood screws. These hardwood screws have tighter threads on them, so it will prevent from splitting that wood easily. And now back to the table saw, and we're going to trim down some 3/4 inch plywood for the bottom. And then the bottom is cut to final length on the miter saw using this climb cut. If you're not familiar with a climb cut or not comfortable with it, don't do it, please. And now on to installing the bottom. And now on to doing something stupid. So I have a propensity to read the reviews on the Amazon website. And some guy's like, hey, you need to round out the hinges because it'll make it look better. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. So that's what I did. Stupid. Apparently, I rounded out the hinges too deep and now the lid will not close. Wonderful.
No, God!
So one of the tricks to woodworking is fixing your mistakes where nobody actually even notices it's a mistake. Well, besides the fact of telling you on YouTube that I made a mistake. That's cool. This is how I fixed it. Using the same feather board from earlier, I'm going to cut out a thin strip from a piece of scrap wood. And then I'm going to cut that piece of wood to size, use some glue and pin nails to secure the piece in place. And then we're going to use the detail sander and the big sander to smooth it all out to make it look almost seamless. The good thing here is that the repair piece was the same width as the hinge, so you'll never see it once the hinge is reinstalled.
Thank you, Jesus!
And now on to the home stretch. I'm going to finish the whole box with a Total Bolt Halcyon, followed up by a thin coat of walrus oil furniture butter. I really took my time doing this because I wanted this to be absolute perfect. So I did every step to the exact T that the manufacturer suggested. So the first step is to spray on the Total Bolt Halcyon, which I am going to do 3 coats. The Halcyon is also thinned down by 20%, so it can go through my spray gun, which is the Fuji Semi Pro 2. It's a little underpowered, it's only stage 1, so I needed to thin it down just a little bit for it to spray evenly. I'm also using the Fuji 2.0 tip to spray all of the finish. And I really need the Fuji pressure pot so I can spray in any direction without the bottom container getting in the way. So Fuji, I hope you're watching this. And before I put the last coat of furniture butter on the piece, I'm going to install these magnets on the top and the lid so it will close. Unfortunately, this did not work very well and it didn't work at all actually. So the video quality on the iPhone 15 is actually pretty good. So just enjoy. And on to applying the furniture butter from walrus oil. This finish is absolutely incredible and I will use it every single time I make any kind of piece of furniture. I'll probably use it on shop projects too because it is great. It's easy to install, it's easy to apply, and it dries relatively quickly. That's a wrap on the project. I want to thank everybody for sticking around to watch the video, and I'd like to announce that the plans for this project will be absolutely free on my website. Check the description below. I also want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from my family to yours. And cheers.